An interesting thing about Fujifilm is that they are quite notorious for their JPEGs. Their JPEGs are very good. You can emulate film simulations in them, and the quality is quite solid. The dynamic range as well is quite solid. So a lot of people have transitioned into shooting JPEG only because it saves a lot of space on their workflow and things like that. But I'm kind of a rarity in this sense. I think I started shooting a lot of JPEGs earlier on, but I've since transitioned and now I'm shooting RAW only with Fujifilm. So I want to kind of talk a little bit about that and explain my workflow and why I do it. But this is not a RAW versus JPEG or debate or anything like that. I think everyone has their own kind of workflow, and it's kind of interesting to see each person's point of view and how they like to take pictures and formats and whatever. So that is the topic of today's video. I've stopped shooting JPEG with Fujifilm and now I shoot RAW only. So the first reason as to why I shoot RAW only now is for purpose and orientation. Before, when I was first getting into Fujifilm, I was just taking pictures for digital purposes and sharing them like over the website, online and stuff like that. But I have now shifted my perspective and am printing a lot more. So when you're printing pictures, you want almost the best pictures you can get in terms of quality and also composition and lighting and things like that. And so the purpose and orientation of why you're taking pictures is a bit different because the medium that is going to be coming out on is going to be different. And so there's nothing wrong with the JPEGs of Fujifilm. You can still print a lot of solid images through the JPEGs, but I've noticed the RAWs have a better, higher dynamic range for me. I can push shadows more, I can push highlights more, and I can do a lot more things that are more nitpicky and more print-like by just shooting RAW. So I used to shoot RAW and JPEG. So I would do the RAW plus F setting inside the camera, and then I would get a file format for RAW and JPEG. And this worked for me before because then I could compose in the JPEG and then I could edit the RAWs. But then I realized that it was kind of counterintuitive. So this kind of leads me into my second point, and it's that you can access film simulations in Lightroom. So initially I thought that I could only shoot JPEGs in like classic chrome or classic negative, and then I wouldn't have any opportunity to switch that up in post. But as soon as you import the RAWs in Lightroom, you can actually access all of the film simulations of your camera inside Lightroom, and you can apply that as like a base layer or a preset or something like that. So it gives you a lot of flexibility to work with, and you still get the dynamic range of the RAWs, which I found is awesome. So for example, I can import the RAW, I can choose between classic chrome, ASTIA, classic negative, just based on the composition and how I feel about the image. And it gives me a lot more flexibility than the JPEGs because the JPEGs are kind of stuck as they are as you shot them, which is what some people want, I get, but for me, I enjoy having the options in the editing anyways. Another reason why I switched over to shooting RAW only is that you can still compose in the film simulations when you're shooting in camera. So for example, if I go over to my camera, I switch things to RAW only, I can still take pictures or compose those pictures in the film simulation. And I didn't know I could do this at first. I thought I had to shoot JPEG to do this, but once I figured this out, this kind of switched things up for me. Because now I can compose in classic chrome, but the RAW file comes out as the RAW file, and then I can just edit it however I perceive the picture or however I kind of felt about the image, you know, so it's not holding me back in the sense that I would lose that access to the film simulations, which is really, really awesome. So that's another big reason as to why I switched over to RAW only. And the fourth and probably the biggest reason is that shooting RAW only saves me a lot of space and a lot of workflow. Like I said before, I was shooting RAW plus JPEG, so I'd have both the files, but then I started realizing I was only editing the RAW files anyways because I was intending it for it to be like a print medium. And now, I also said this earlier, the prints from the JPEGs aren't bad at all. It's just the RAWs give me a lot more flexibility, and there is just going to be straight up more information in the RAW files than there are in the JPEG files. And so I get a lot of the reason why people shoot JPEG only is to save a lot of space because RAWs can take up a lot of space. But for me, I wanted the highest image quality I could get so I can translate that over onto paper. So I decided to keep only the RAWs and cut out the JPEGs because I wasn't really doing anything with the JPEGs. I was just having them as a reference, but I would edit the RAWs only anyways. So it would kind of cut out and create a bunch more space that I really didn't need in my editing workflow. So cutting out the JPEG saved a lot of like headspace as well as like physical or digital space. So I think kind of what it comes down to is workflow, which is more efficient for you. If you're the type of person who doesn't want to edit too much, then JPEGs and straight out of camera shots will probably be the most preferential thing for you. But if you're someone who, like me, who likes a little more control over the things and really kind of nitpicks certain aspects of the picture, then having RAWs will be a lot more convenient for you, especially when you still have access to all the film simulations and everything that you would want in a Fujifilm camera in post. And I think that's really, really awesome. Now, there's one more thing I want to talk about, because when you're composing in Fujifilm cameras and you're shooting JPEGs, you can change settings like color, sharpness, clarity, and things like that in the camera. And so you can get a more closer to ideal straight out of camera setting without having to edit in post if that's your kind of workflow, that's kind of what you want. But I also realize you can do this with the RAW files as well. So if you have the RAW file and you download the Camera Raw app, Studio or something like that for Fujifilm, you can actually import the RAW file and then input the camera settings into that and then get the straight out of JPEG camera picture image file that you want, just like that. So it's not like you have to shoot in JPEG to get that kind of shot. You can actually still do it in post using the RAW Studio app that Fujifilm has, which is really cool because that's not something you can imitate by doing just through Lightroom. It would take a lot longer. And I just thought that was a really cool feature that Fujifilm has for their cameras. And I've used it not that often, to be honest, but you know, it is an option. So anyways, those are the reasons as to why I switched over my workflow and now shoot RAW only. I feel like the biggest reason was for a print medium. I wanted to just get the highest quality and most information retained in my files so I can kind of work with it through paper and printing and things like that. Let me know down below in the comment section as to why you shoot RAW or you shoot JPEG, which you prefer and how it fits better into your workflow, because I'm curious as to see what you guys prefer and what you guys like. And if you guys like this video, please go ahead and like the video down below, subscribe to this channel for more photography and Fujifilm stuff, and I will see you guys in another video. Thanks again for watching as always. Peace.